Alright, in this video, I want to get into the two beasts that are actually mentioned in Revelation chapter 13. We had a beast that comes out of the sea, a beast that comes out of the earth. You think I got some really good insight on this? Been studying this, thinking about it, listening to different pastors, teachers on this, and I think that got things coming together here, and these things are starting to fit. I haven't heard anybody say quite what I'm saying, but just taking all this information and all this insight and putting it together, I think this is what is going on. If there's any errors or flaws in what I'm getting into here, please share it with me. I want to figure this out. I want the truth. I'm not trying to establish something as it's set in stone and this is it. But this seems to make a lot of sense and fit. So anyway, in Revelation chapter 17 is where I want to start here. It actually talks about the beast that comes out of the sea, and there's a woman riding him. And down here, an angel says, don't marvel, I'm going to tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that she rides. So that's what I want to get into here. Now, I'll read this first part here, and then I'm going to break it down. Because if I break it down without reading the whole thing, I don't know if it's all going to click. So I'm going to read it all so it's right there in your head, and then I'm going to break it down. It says here, verse 8, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come, and when he cometh he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Now, take all that in. I know it's quite a lot of interesting information, and it'd be like, what does all this mean? So now I want to break this down, now that it's just, boom, right there. Okay, it says the beast that you saw was and is not. So from John's perspective, he's writing this around 96 AD. This beast did exist, but it doesn't anymore. And he says it shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Now this is very key, because keep in mind, John is the one writing this. Right? So what I want to do is actually get into what this perdition means. John chapter 17, we read about John saying about Jesus praying to the Father here. He says, while I was with them in the world, I kept them in thy name. Those that thou gavest me I have kept, and none of them is lost, but the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled. Now he's talking about the 12 disciples and that he kept them, except the one, the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled. This is Judas. Judas is referred to as the son of perdition. He's the only one referred to as the son of perdition, which is very interesting because Paul tells us about the day of the Lord, that the Thessalonians thought they missed the rapture and that the day of the Lord is at hand. And he's trying to tell them, calm down, don't let anybody deceive you, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. The man of sin revealed, the son of perdition. The only place it mentions son of the perdition is talking about Judas. Judas is the son of perdition that is to be revealed. You see, there's some connections there where when Jesus was betrayed by Judas, they nailed him to a cross, and they refer to that as being hung on a tree. Judas then hangs himself on a tree and dies. And something interesting that I have already kind of set up here. Acts chapter 25. It says, talking about someone replacing Judas, it says that he may take part of the ministry in apostleship, from which Judas by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. And you notice that it says he goes to his own place. So he's not with everybody else in hell. He's somewhere on his own somewhere. Now keep that in mind. We're going to go forward to another thing John has to say about Judas over here. Jesus answered them, "Have I not chosen you 12, and one of you is a devil?" He spake of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, for he it was that should betray him, being one of the 12. He refers to him as a devil. Not that he has a devil, but that he is a devil. That he's a demon. That's very interesting. Let's move forward here to what Luke also puts in on this. Luke 22:3 says, "Then Satan entered into Judas, surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. And this is a picture of the actual Antichrist, because that's how we always depict the Antichrist, right? As either Satan in the flesh, the son of Satan, or a man that Satan ends up just possessing. So this beast seems to be Judas, because from John's time, Judas was and is not, and he went to his own place, so he's going to come out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, because he is the son of perdition according to John. And then it says, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. So when he comes, people are going to be amazed. Right? It says he comes up out of the sea, so I don't know. Is he going to come up? A lot of people thinking of like some kind of UFO alien event, or are people just going to see this guy float up out of the sea? I don't know, but it's going to be something where people think it's supernatural. People think it's something miraculous, right? And that's why they're going to wonder after him, because they don't know the scriptures, they don't know God, they don't know Jesus, so they're going to believe whatever nonsense comes their way. Anything that looks all fanciful, they're going to think is of God. They look at it, look at this amazing thing. And it's interesting that the Catholics have a Saint Malachi who had a prophecy of all the popes and what names they would have, and he was correct on all the popes and all the names that they were going to pick when they became pope. And we're down at the second to last one. The next one is supposed to be Peter the Roman, and there's interesting things said about him. Malachi says that this Peter the Roman comes, and that he's some kind of not a very good shepherd, and that the church is judged, and that some awful things happen when this pope comes into play. And I wonder if they call him Peter the Roman because they think one of the apostles comes back and they think it's Peter, but it's actually Judas. And it's interesting that when he comes back, that when we read Revelation 18, I'm just going to go to it real quick, that the Catholic Church is actually judged. So Malachi's prophecy seems to match up with the Bible. I wouldn't really take what he said as anything other than a grain of salt, other than this, what he said actually seems to match up if this actually is the last pope that's coming. It says Babylon has fallen, and it gets into how this church is judged. And it tells you even here at the end of Revelation 17 that the beast destroys her. It says that it makes her desolate, naked, eats her flesh, burns her with fire, because God has put it in her hearts to fulfill his will. Right? And he says that woman that thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. That is the Vatican. It's a city-state. And how does it rule over the world? Like it says here, how and here is the mind which has wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains on which the woman sitteth. Mountains represent kingdoms, and the Catholic Church is able to sit above the beast and ride the beast and control the beast because she's a city that reigns over the kings of the earth. She is not only the head of a church, which gives her an influence over every nation because every nation has a Catholic population. So that Catholic population is going to want that country to side with the Pope and with the Catholic Church, obviously. And that would also sway votes and all these other things. So that has one way she influences. The Vatican also dictates through Roman law. All the trade agreements for the countries and all the commerce law, the law of the sea, and the trading going on over the sea has to do with Roman law and is bound by Roman law and benefits this woman. So she controls a lot of the trading in the economy. Not only that, but the Vatican actually owns London, the city, and owns Washington, D.C., not the United States, but that little city there. And through there, she's able to influence and control England and the United States and tax them with the Federal Reserve and get all the money from that and spend it however she sees fit. So that's how she's able to control this beast, but eventually the beast gets sick of this and destroys her. It's very interesting. But anyway, let's read on here. This is where it gets interesting. It says, and there are 7 kings. This is key because mountain is a kingdom. I should cover real quick. When we read Daniel chapter 2, we read about a statue, and the metals represent kingdoms. We got a head of gold for Babylon, a chest and arms of silver for Medo-Persia, belly and thighs of brass for Greece, legs of iron for the Roman Empire, and then when the Roman Empire breaks up, it's the feet of iron and clay, so it's kind of broken up, and that's why we see this weird broken up kingdom, right? And that's what it's going to be like at the end of the world. And then Jesus comes as a rock cut without hands, smashes into it, destroys the kingdoms, and then a mountain comes up and is the kingdom of heaven and reigns from there on out. So a mountain represents kingdoms, and then it talks about there's 7 kings. It says 5 are fallen, one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Now what's interesting here is the one that is would have to be Rome. Because John is writing this in about 96 AD. And Rome was in power at that time. So there had to be 5 kings that have fallen. It doesn't say kingdoms. That's what's key, is it says kings. And this is connected to the book of Daniel. It uses the same terminology. So if we are to take that, what seems to make sense, the only thing that makes sense, is the 5 kings that have fallen. We got it starting at Babylon. That Nebuchadnezzar's down, right? Medo-Persia is two kings. It's one kingdom, but it had two kings, the king of Medo and the king of Persia. They joined together to make one kingdom to be able to conquer Babylon. So that's two kings down. Then you have Alexander the Great, who conquered Medo-Persia. That's fallen. So we have one more king that is down. Who is it? Well, what's interesting is what we first read, because it says, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the seven, and goeth into perdition. So this is one of the five fallen. Because you remember, John says that he was and is not, right? And then he says that this same beast is one of the five, or one of the seven at least. But he says that it is not right now, so it has to be one of the fallen. And it's to come, and it's going to be as the eighth, and goes into perdition. He keeps mentioning perdition, because this fifth kingdom is Israel. And a lot of people are like, what? Well, you got to check out my videos where I get into the Jews that are not Jews. They just claim to be Jews, and that they are the synagogue of Satan, which we read about in Revelation chapter 2 and 3, which is interesting because it's John who's actually referring to them as that he knows about the Jews who aren't Jews, and that they are the synagogue of Satan. And that's very key, that the synagogue of Satan. And I'll try to briefly go over it. That star that they call the Star of David, that's a six-pointed star, that's not the Star of David. There is no Star of David. That is the Star of Rephaim. In Amos, you read about Israel going into apostasy, worshiping the host of heaven, and that they go after this Rephaim character and make a star to this god. That star is the star of Saturn. Rephaim is Saturn. And that six-pointed star represents Saturn. If you go look up some images of Saturn's north and south pole, it has a depiction from NASA, whether it's real or not, I don't know, but it shows on one of its poles a hexagonal shape where wind is going around it, like a weird hurricane going around a hexagonal shape, because that six-sided object represents Saturn, because it's like a cube. That's why it has that six. That's a hexagon, and they represent it as the six-pointed star. And Islam has it as the cube of Mecca. You know how they have that same cube in Mecca, and they all circle it because it ties into Saturn worship. They're both going after Satan. That's why there's Jews who speak out against the nation of Israel, against the Zionists, because they are causing anti-Semitism by doing what they're doing. They say that when the Messiah comes, he'll gather all the Jews and establish Israel. They're trying to do it by force. That's what I'll get into to prove this before I move on. Jesus comes to the Jews, right? And he talks about the kingdom of heaven, which is a earthly kingdom. It's about the kingdom of heaven coming down on earth. It's the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of the Jews. He says the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. Right? He goes on here in Matthew 21. He gives a parable here about a certain householder which planted a vineyard. And he sent his servants, and they kept killing the servants. So he goes, you know what, I'm going to send my son. They'll reverence my son. But when the husbandmen saw the son, they said among themselves, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and let us seize on his inheritance. And that's what the Jews did. They saw, hey, this is the son of David. This is the rightful king. But we don't want him to be king over us. Let us kill him and take the kingdom from him. Just what he was saying here. The kingdom of heaven suffer violence, and the violence take it by force. And that's what they tried to do. Right? Now, when we go into the book of Acts, you know what, I'll use this one. I know how I just told you about Amos, how that they went into apostasy, and that they made a star to Rephaim, which is Saturn. I think it's actually mentioned here. Well, guess what? The Jews stoned Stephen for saying this. You see, Stephen addresses the Sanhedrin, and he goes over the history of Israel, right? And down here, he quotes Amos. It was, "Ye house of Israel, you've offered up me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness. Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Rephan," which they have right now. "Figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon." Right? So the Jews stoned him. That's what they did. They killed him for pointing these things out. And real quick, let's go back to Revelation just to point out that there's the Jews that call themselves Jews but are not. He goes, "They are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan." How are you supposed to know? Well, because they have the star of Satan on their flag. They're trying to take the kingdom by force. Again, this is mentioned in Revelation 3 to the church of Philadelphia. It goes, "Behold, I'll make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I'll make them come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee." Right? So we know that there's people who are saying they're Jews and they're not, but they're of the synagogue of Satan. That's the nation of Israel right now. Now, this is in no way condemnation against all Jews and anti-Semitic. I'm actually for the Jewish people. It's that these are not really Jews. They're making the Jews look bad. They're Zionists hiding behind the Jews. It's Satan hiding as a Jew, just like he was doing with Judas. So we come back here to Revelation 17. I'll show you how this makes sense. And he says that, the one that is the sixth, and the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Now, all these nations lasted quite a while, right? But these ones last a short space. Now, this one that is to come, well, the interesting thing is that the Vatican became its own city-state, its own country, its own nation in 1929. That's when it actually started. And if the end of the world is coming here, the rapture is coming, that's not a long time for a nation to exist. Now, is it? That's a very short space. 1929, let's say 25, let's just throw that number out there. So that's interesting. And interesting fact that happened in 1929 is the stock market crash. And what happened at the stock market crash? Well, America left common law and went to Roman law, and everybody ended up signing up for Social Security numbers and signing their children up for Social Security numbers, which bound them by contract into Roman law and put us under the jurisdiction of Roman law and the Vatican, right when they actually become recognized as their own nation, their own country. Ain't that something? And they continue a short space, but then it says this beast, one of these ones that were fallen, that when he's going to come out of the bottomless pit, he's one of the seven, and he's also going to be the eighth. What happened shortly after the seventh one came up? 1948, Israel comes back, but it's not real Israel. It's the synagogue of Satan. It's Judas pretending to be one of the disciples. You can see how all of this fits, can you not? Because we got Rome, which is by fallen. These are kings, not kingdoms. So we got Babylon, we got Medo, we got Persia, we got Greece, and then we have Israel. And the king was actually Jesus. But of this kingdom, this is a earthly kingdom, satanic kingdom. That king that died was Judas. The one that is Rome. The one that is not yet come, but when it comes a short space. Vatican State. After the Vatican State comes up, one of the seven comes back. Who was that? It seems to be out of like a bottomless pit, right? Because the nation was just gone. It wasn't as if it just lost power. It was gone. Like Greece still exists. It just doesn't have the power it had. Medo-Persia exists. It just doesn't have the power. Israel was just wiped off, right? And now it's back. It is the eighth, but it's of the seven. It's the synagogue of Satan. And when this Judas fella comes up, Israel's going to recognize him as the Messiah. And that's why the whole world is going to wonder after him, because the Jews are going to be saying, yeah, it's the Messiah. All right, everybody worship him. And then he's going to sit as Peter the Roman, because see, he's uniting everybody. He's going to be uniting mainly Israel, Islam, and Christianity. So he's going to come up as the Jewish Messiah. He's going to sit as the Pope. And Islam, I'm going to show you how they come in a moment here. But then it goes on to say, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So it doesn't seem like these kings come up until this beast comes up. So Israel has already come back. And you notice the interesting thing is about what Jesus said about the fig tree. He cursed the fig tree, and then Israel's destroyed in 70 AD, just completely wiped out. The city of Jerusalem destroyed, the temple completely wiped out, not one stone left upon another. And he says, when the fig tree comes back, and you see it bring forth leaf, you know that the end is near. But you notice that it doesn't bring forth fruit. Because when he cursed the fig tree, he said, let it not bring forth fruit ever again. And that's what we see. We see the nation of Israel coming up. It's the synagogue of Satan. So it's going to bring forth leaf, but it doesn't actually bring forth fruit. And that's the fruit of the Spirit. So there's another key that ties into all of this. Now, the 10 horns, not quite sure. I think 7 of them have to do with these kings right here. So there would be 3 others that come up to get power, to give all their power onto this beast. Not too sure. That could be it. It could be 10 separate kings that actually are just come out of these kingdoms, because I know a lot of these kingdoms are split up. Not too sure, because there seem to be a lot of different little countries around, right? So I don't think that's what it is. I think it might represent these 7 kings, and there's 3 others. So what I've thought about is that in future time, because of what we see going on around the world, things are going to become more united. Less boundaries here. So what I think we're going to see is that we have this 7-headed beast, which basically covers into Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And these other 3 horns that come up, I imagine, would be a ruler over North America, South America, and Australia. Definitely not sure on this one. This one not set in stone. I'm not really too sure about this. This might be some future event that just can't quite see right yet. But it's just definitely something I want to pray about and study more about, because I'm not too sure about that. But all I know is they give all their power onto the beast, this Antichrist, this false Messiah, and then he turns on the Vatican and destroys it, at which point he moves to Israel, and that's where he sets up the abomination of desolation. You see, let's go back over here. We'll get a little bit more information about this beast. It says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." So here, it's very key here. A lot of information right here. You can see he's made of a leopard. This is Greece. Bear, that's Medo-Persia. Lion is Babylon. The dragon is Rome. And the dragon is what gives him the power and his seat and great authority. And that's where I'm saying he's going to sit as the actual pope, because that's where the lineage drops off. The Caesar gave its kingdom and its authority over to the papacy. So the pope is basically in line of the emperors of Rome, the Caesars. So this Antichrist beast is going to be Peter the Roman. He's going to be a pope. And this, a lot of people bring up that this might be his actual mixture of his race. He's not going to be like a pure blood Jew or Caucasian or Asian or African. He's going to be a mixed fella. It says, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And the world wondered after the beast." This is what we already went over. One of the heads represent one of the kingdoms. Israel, deadly wound, was just destroyed. It didn't exist. And then it comes back. And everybody wondered. And even Christians were like, "Oh, this is of God. Israel brought back as a nation in one day. Holy cow." You can see everybody wondering after this. "And they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" So he does something to show his power. "And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And this is the time of the tribulation, 3.5 years. As described in many different ways, times, and a dividing of times, 1,260 days, I think. But it keeps saying the same thing over and over, because that's the time of the tribulation. This is talking about the Antichrist. This is this son of perdition, Judas, claiming to be Jesus. And he's going to be speaking great things and blasphemies, right? A lot of people think that he's also going to get an assassination attempt, and maybe somebody sees this video and is going to put a bullet in his head, because in Zechariah we read about this false shepherd that rises up, which is interesting that Malachi calls him something along the lines of being a false shepherd. And even the Muslims know about this Zechariah prophecy where the Antichrist is going to have a darkened right eye. And people think it's an assassination attempt. So there might be something where somebody tries to prove that he's not God and shoots him. But then he's going to raise from the dead. And he's going to have a darkened right eye, and people are going to be even more amazed. Right? But that prophecy right there is going to show that this is the Antichrist. If Jews are going to know about Zechariah. A lot of Christians know about that prophecy as well. and a lot of Muslims do. So they might be thinking, oh, this is Jesus coming to help the Mahdi or something along those lines. But when they see the darkened eye, they're going to be like, holy cow, this is the Dajjal, what they call the Antichrist. And it should wake up. So I can see how God is going to save a lot of people during the tribulation because he's given them all warning. And it says here, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And this is basically the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel, where this Antichrist, like I said, the Vatican's destroyed, he's going to move to Jerusalem. And he's going to go to the temple, he's going to stop the sacrifices. So imagine they're going to get this temple rebuilt, and that's where he's going to claim to be God. And the interesting thing is, I was actually watching somebody's videos, and they were talking about their trip to Israel. And they were talking to some of the Jews, and they were saying that they don't like all the Catholic influence there because they're doing illegal digging under their churches. And they were like looking more into it, and apparently they think that they're digging under the dome of the mosque that is at the Temple Mount. And they think that what they're going to do is try to fake some kind of natural disaster, an earthquake, to destroy the Temple Mount so that they can actually set up the temple. So that is very interesting. There might be something to it. It goes on here and it says, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Now I think that pretty much sums it up. You know, he's the Antichrist. He gets the world going after him. And if you don't go after him, well, you're going to be killed with the sword. Right? And there's a connection here. He has a friend with him. This seems to be the false prophet. I'm trying to think off the top of my head where it mentions the false prophet doing miracles. I think it's Revelation 16. So let me go to this one here real quick. Oh, nope, I do want to use this one. It's real close. Is it down here? Yeah, because it's at the sixth veil. Oh, this is with the frogs come out of the mouth of the false prophet. Okay, so that was wrong. Maybe I have to type that in. I might type in the false prophet Revelation. Right here, 1920. So let's just go to that. Just to show how this is actually seems to be the false prophet. Crap, I don't remember the verse. Was it 19? There is no 19. Crap, what was it? Dang it. See if I can find it real quick. Alright, sorry about that. I'm gonna have to. I wasn't paying attention. 19 something. 1920. Oh, I'm in verse 20, that's why. I mean, chapter 20. Man, I'm just getting messed up right now. This wasn't part of the plan. Anyway, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him. So the key here talks about the false prophet. This beast seems to be the Antichrist fella, and there's a false prophet, right? This false prophet seems to be represented by this beast right here, because this beast is not mentioned for the rest of Revelation, and it's not mentioned before right here, at least in the terms of this beast here. But anyway, it says here in verse 11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now, I've seen a lot of connections to the United States, which I might bring up after this, but I'm going to show you how it seems to be talking about Islam. Like, a lot of this fits to Islam, and I'll explain. It comes up like a lamb, so it comes up like a religion, kind of peaceful. Because you know how these other beasts are described as a lion, a bear, a leopard, a dragon, an indescribable beast that's a mixture of all of them. But this one comes up like a lamb. So it doesn't come up like one of these vicious beasts. But it speaks like a dragon. It says, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell on the earth to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. So he gets everybody to worship this false Messiah. This seems to be talking about the Mahdi. This is what the Muslims believe is basically like their Messiah figure. They believe that he's going to come and he's going to rule for 7 years, and he's going to unite the world and make the whole world Muslim, and that Jesus is going to come with him and help him. And that's who this first beast is a false Jesus. So this false prophet comes. This is the Mahdi getting the Muslims to join in. So we already got the Jews and the Christians joining together. Now we have the Muslims being joined in here. The Mahdi is trying to get the whole world to worship that first beast whose deadly wound was healed. Not only that, he might actually receive, the nation was destroyed and came back. He might actually get the same thing, a deadly wound, and come back. And that's how he gets that darkened eye. And he goeth and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Now that is interesting, because that's what Elijah did. Elijah rained fire down on these men who came to get him. And Elijah was supposed to come before Jesus. And that was John the Baptist. John the Baptist came and he pointed everybody. They looked at him as a prophet, but he pointed everybody to Jesus. They were like, look at Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And then he was finally beheaded, and it was just all Jesus. We got this false prophet coming. He's trying to be like John the Baptist. And he's pointing everybody to Judas. Judas, Judas, Judas. And he's doing miracles like Elijah. He's trying to come in the same spirit of Elijah, to fool the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. Like it says here, and he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, and which had the wound by the sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Now, what I think is going on here is this image of the beast is it's not actually the temple, but they're trying to build a temple. I think he's probably trying to get the Muslims to finally go with the flow here and build the Jewish temple. Because this is the image of the beast. The beast is not just the Antichrist, but Israel as a false nation, set up by man, not by God. It's an imposter. It's not really the Jews. It's the synagogue of Satan. So this false prophet seems to be getting the Muslim world to set up the temple because they don't want to. And that's probably, the earthquake happened, or fake earthquake, destroy the temple. The Dome of the Rock, what the Muslims have set up there, and then they set up the Jewish temple. And it says, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And there's a lot to this. So that's why it's like he's like a lamb. He's not forcing, but he's basically coercing everybody to take it. You can't get a job, you can't get money, you can't buy, you can't sell. You need that mark in order to live. And it's tied to a number, and it's a number of a man, and you're to count the number of the man. Count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and the number is of his name. So it's like you got to take his name and count it out, and it's 666. I mean, there's so much to it. That's why you see people taking names and trying to count the name out. They convert the letters into numbers, which you can easily do with like Latin because their letters are numbers. But people just take it with like English, like A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and so on and so forth, right? So Z would be 26, and they take that, and so they'll take your name, like you got Joe, and they'll, oh, J is this, O is this, E is that, and they add up the number, and they try to see, does this work? That's why you see everybody doing it. It looks weird, and you're like, why are you doing all that? Because it tells you to do it right here in Revelation. But an interesting thing here about that 666, see if I can find some. You may be thinking what I just searched was weird. But right here, check it out. This is a good one. This is Greek for 666, right? And you can see how in Arabic, this is in the name of Allah. You can see how this X matches up, this weird sword thing matches up. The only difference is in the Arabic is that actually is on its side. So let me see if I can find a more accurate run. Here we go. This one is more accurate. In Arabic, it has the same thing in the middle, but it's turned on its side, but everything else matches. So you can see in the name of Allah is the same as 666. So that's where you can see this false prophet coming up. See if I can find a better one. Alright, this one looks pretty clear. Satan in the Bible equals Allah of Quran. Well, this is false prophet. False prophet in the Bible equals Allah of Quran. Now the Greek number for 666 equals in the name of Allah. The only thing is, like this one, they keep switching this. This is actually turned on its side in Arabic. So that's the only difference. So I want to find a more accurate one. I think I already showed you the... There we go, right here. See how it's twisted on its side? So the X is still the same. The weird sword swiggle is the same. This is the same, it's just this is standing up and this is turning on its side. That's the only difference. So you can see the connection to how this second beast is the false prophet. It has two horns because it has the state of Islam and the religion of Islam. So two authorities there, over the state and over the religion. So I think all of this is coming together quite well. Might not actually see any of this. I know the man of sin is revealed before the rapture, such as what we read right here. Or at least, the day of the Lord isn't until after he's revealed. So we don't have to worry about we haven't missed the rapture because none of this has happened. And you know what? We're probably going to be taken before he's actually revealed. But this is going to be here for people. I think people will be led to this once all this starts kicking off, and they're going to be like, how does this guy just sitting on his recliner know this? How is he telling me what's going on in the world right now? Well, it's because I read the Bible, and I prayerfully got into it, and I wanted to be able to warn people like you. So you're welcome, and thank God, give a little hallelujah out there. All right, I gotta add this to the video. I'm gonna splice it up. But this is what I was talking about in Zechariah chapter 11. And it actually refers to Judas as the false shepherd with the darkened eye, which connects to everything I was telling you, that this Antichrist is Judas. Let's read here. And I took my staff, even beauty, and cut it asunder, that I might break my covenant which I had made with all the people. And it was broken in that day. And so the poor of the flock that waited upon me knew that it was the word of the Lord. And I said unto them, if ye think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. This is talking about Judas selling Jesus out to the Jews for 30 pieces of silver. Or should I say the Sanhedrin? I don't want to throw all the Jews under the bus there. And the Lord said unto me, cast it onto the potter. And Jesus had a few parables about the potter. It's kind of interesting here. So he might have been actually referring to Judas that whole time and connecting them to the nation of Israel at the same time, because he was also rebuking the Pharisees and Sadducees in the Sanhedrin. A goodly price that I was priced at of them, and I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Then I cut asunder mine other staff, even bands, that I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. This might be referring to Judas, since he was from the tribe of Judah. Not too sure, but it seems to be making a lot more sense now. And the Lord said unto me, take unto thee yet the instruments of a foolish shepherd. For lo, I will raise up a shepherd in the land, which shall not visit those that be cut off, neither shall seek the young one, nor heal that is broken, nor feed that standeth still, but he shall eat the flesh of the fat, and tear their claws in pieces. Woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth a flock! The sword shall be upon his arm, and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. This ties into what we've been reading in Revelation. It ties into what Malachi was telling the Catholics about the shepherd, Peter the Roman that comes. This ties into even what the Muslims believe about this, that the Dajjal, what they call the Antichrist, will have the darkened right eye. Right? And it even warns the Jews who believe that this Judas is going to be the Messiah. He's going to have this darkened right eye. He's going to be the foolish shepherd. So anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.